Welcome back to the deep dive. We are doing something a little different today.
Yeah, definitely a pivot from the usual.
Right, because usually, we take a stack of articles about tech or history or politics, and we try to make sense of the world around us. But today, we are looking at the world through us.
Which is a huge shift in perspective.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I want you to picture the setting for this, because the vibe here is absolutely essential to understanding what we're about to discuss.
Oh, the context changes everything here.
So, I want you to close your eyes for a second. It is the night before Halloween.
Spooky season.
Exactly. October 30th, 1967. We're in Elmira, New York. It's a standard, quiet Monday evening. You have a couple, Jane Roberts and her husband, Rob Bucks, sitting in their living room.
Just a normal evening at home.
Right, except they're doing what a lot of people were doing in the late 60s. They're experimenting, but they aren't, listening to records or debating politics. They are trying to make a table move using only their minds.
And they're failing miserably at it initially.
Yeah.
Which is actually a really key part of the story.
It is. That failure is the spark for everything we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Because usually when two people stare at a table for an hour and it doesn't move, they conclude, well, telekinesis isn't real.
They pack it up and go watch TV.
Right. But in this specific living room, something else happens. Jane enters a trance state, and a personality calling himself Seth comes through. And he doesn't give them a spooky, I am a ghost speech.
No, not at all.
He gives them a lecture, a literal physics lecture.
That's really the best way to describe it. It isn't a seance in the traditional sense. It's a technical breakdown of why they failed. It's like a mechanic explaining why your car won't start, except the car is a table and the engine is your mind.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we are focusing exclusively on session 376 of the early sessions, book 8 of the Seth Material.
A fascinating text.
Truly. The date of record, again, is Monday, October 30, 1967. This material is published by the New Awareness Network, and our mission today is to unpack what I'm calling the mechanics of the impossible.
I like that title. We're going to break down exactly how Seth explains the interaction between mind and matter. And this isn't vague mysticism. He talks about molecular structures, nervous systems, and electrical charges.
And because it is the day before Halloween in the transcript, we also have a ghost story.
Yes, we do.
A legitimate, verified ghost hunt that Jane and Rob went on 3 days prior to this session.
Which ends in a way that I think will surprise a lot of listeners. It completely flips the script on what we think hauntings actually are. It's genuinely one of the funniest and most chilling things I've read in this material.
It really is. But before we jump into the physics and the phantoms, we need to state our standard disclaimer.
Right, of course.
This deep dive will be distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We are here to explore the text and the ideas within it. We aren't here to endorse a specific belief system, but to understand the internal logic of these really fascinating documents.
Exactly. Whether you believe in channeling or not, the intellectual framework Seth proposes is incredibly intricate and worth understanding on its own terms. It deeply challenges our assumptions about solidity and consciousness.
So let's go back to that living room. It's 9:25 p.m. Jane has been trying to move this table. She's staring at it. She's straining. Nothing happens.
She's completely frustrated.
Frustrated, yeah.
Yeah.
Then she goes into trance. Seth pops in, and the first thing he does is turn his attention to Rob.
Poor Rob. He really catches the heat here.
He does. Rob is the scribe. He's the husband. He's sitting there with his pen and paper, ready to take notes. He thinks his job is to be the objective observer, the scientist in the corner documenting the phenomena.
And that is exactly where Seth stops him. This is the first major insight of this session, and it's a massive one for anyone interested in consciousness studies. Seth effectively tells Rob, this failed because of you.
Not because Rob was skeptical. I mean, he wanted it to work.
Right.
But because he was passive.
Exactly. Seth says to him, you are far more important than a stenographer. He critiques Rob for thinking that he can just sit there and record the event without influencing it. In the Seth model of reality, there is absolutely no such thing as a detached observer.
That sounds a lot like quantum physics, doesn't it? The observer effect. You look at the particle and it changes its behavior.
It's very similar, yes, but Seth takes it a step further. In quantum mechanics, we talk about the measurement collapsing the wave function. Here, Seth is saying that Rob's active energy is actually required to fuel the phenomenon itself. He tells Rob that his willing fingers and good intent aren't enough. He needs active focus.
So good intent is just being nice. Active focus is actually doing the work.
Exactly. Seth points out that his active energy was not there earlier. Think about that. Rob was physically in the room. His body was there, but his energy, it was in stenographer mode. It was totally passive.
So if you're sitting in a seance, or even just trying to manifest something in your own life, you can't just be a passenger.
No, you are the engine, or at least part of the battery. Seth explains that Jane, as the medium or the sensitive, relies on Rob as a partner. He says it requires enthusiastic focus of energy whether or not you are directly involved in a given experiment.
Enthusiastic focus. That's a really specific phrase. It implies that boredom or clinical detachment effectively kills the vibe.
It dampens the field entirely. Think of it like a circuit. Jane is the transformer attempting to step up the voltage to move a physical object. But if Rob, who acts as the ground or the stabilizer, isn't running current, the whole system lacks the voltage to do the heavy lifting.
Wow.
If you have one person trying to channel high energy and another person acting like a court reporter, you have a massive energy leak in the room.
That is such a good analogy. It's like trying to jumpstart a car, but one of the cables is loose.
Precisely. And Seth is basically saying, tighten the clamp, Rob. Get in the game.
Okay, so step one, everyone in the room has to be on. No spectators. Now, let's assume they fix that. Rob puts down the pen, or at least starts focusing. How does the table actually move? Because Seth gets into the real nitty-gritty here. He outlines 3 distinct methods for moving matter with the mind.
He does. And the taxonomy here is fascinating because he distinguishes between spirits moving things and us moving things.
Let's start with method 1. He calls this the molecular bridge. This sounds like something straight out of a theoretical physics paper.
It really does. This is the most common method for what we normally call a seance or table tipping. And it's a collaborative effort. It involves the sitters, the living people, and survival personalities, which is Seth's term for spirits.
I love that term. Survival personalities. It implies they didn't die, they just survived the end of the body.
It's a very deliberate choice of words. So in this first method, the process starts with the living. The sitters generate a flow of psychic energy. This is why that enthusiastic focus we just talked about is so critical. You're priming the pump. You're filling the room with raw potential.
Okay, so we're pumping up the room. We are generating the fuel.
Right. Then the spirit steps in. But not by grabbing the table with a ghostly hand. This is the big misconception. We think of a ghost physically manhandling the furniture. Seth says that's not how it works at all. The spirit acts through the nervous system of the sensitive person. In this case, Jane.
Wait, so the spirit is hacking Jane's biology.
In a sense, yeah. Seth explains that the energy of the survival personality works through the nervous system, triggering specific electrical changes in the physical brain. These changes throw an extra charge into the body.
So Jane becomes a capacitor. She's holding this massive electrical or psychic charge.
Correct. And here's where the physics gets truly wild. That charge doesn't just stay inside her, it projects outward. It leaps from her body into the molecular structure of the table.
And this is the bridge.
Yes. But listen to how he describes the table. This is the key quote for me. He says, the molecules are unfrozen, so to speak, and become fluid. A molecular bridge field is therefore momentarily constructed.
The molecules are unfrozen. I want to pause on that because that completely changes how we view solid objects.
It does. We see a table as a static solid object made of wood or plastic. We think of it as finished. Seth sees it as a collection of energy held together by a pattern. He's saying that when you introduce this high-intensity psychic charge, you are disrupting that pattern. You are making the table fluid.
So the boundary between Jane and the table dissolves.
Exactly. They merge energetically. They become part of the exact same force field. The table isn't being pushed, it's being subsumed into the medium's energy field. Seth says the table becomes plastic in its behavior.
Plastic. Like as in moldable.
As incapable of being reshaped, removed without the usual resistance of mass and friction. The medium extends their own vitality into the wood. The wood literally becomes an extension of the medium's body.
That explains why mediums in these old accounts often talk about being totally exhausted or losing weight during a session.
Oh, it's a massive, high-output biological event. Seth explicitly mentions that the sensitive consumes energy very quickly. They are the field operator. They're holding this molecular bridge open. If their focus snaps, the molecules freeze back into place, and the table drops.
It's such a mechanical explanation for something that looks like magic. It's like he's describing how to weld 2 pieces of metal, but with consciousness.
It brings up the whole idea of phase transitions. Ice turns to water, water turns to steam. Seth is suggesting there is a phase transition for solid matter into psychic matter if enough energy is applied.
That is mind-bending. Yep. But he also mentions that this method is the one where you get messages, right?
Yes. Because the spirit, the survival personality, is the one triggering the charge. They can modulate it. They can tap out codes. They can control the movement to communicate with the room.
But then Seth drops a bit of a bomb. He says you don't actually need the spirits.
That brings us to method 2, pure psychic focus.
Right. He says living people can move objects just by concentrated focus of psychic energy. No ghost required.
So, telekinesis is just a natural human ability.
According to this session, yes. We have the hardware for it. But Seth warns there is a trade-off. He says this method usually requires more effort.
It's harder to do because you don't have that external boost from a survival personality. You aren't channeling anything. You are generating everything. You are the battery and the engine.
And crucially, you don't get any messages.
Because there's no one on the other end of the line.
You're just moving the phone with your mind.
Exactly. In method 1, the movement often spells out answers. 1 tap for yes, 2 for no, because a personality is directing the flow. In method 2, it's just raw kinetic force coming from the living participants. You're just shoving the table with your brain.
It's brute force telekinesis.
Which clarifies a lot of paranormal phenomena, actually. Sometimes a poltergeist isn't a ghost. It's just a teenager with too much repressed energy unknowingly using method 2.
That is a terrifying thought. You're just sitting there angsting, and suddenly the dishes fly off the shelf.
But it fits the profile of poltergeist activity perfectly. It's usually centered around adolescents in high-stress environments. Seth's method 2 explains that mechanism perfectly without needing a spirit at all.
Speaking of magic and phenomena, we have to talk about method 3, because this is the one that sounds like it belongs in a sci-fi movie. Levitation.
Yes, complete levitation.
Seth says this is different than just tipping or sliding a table across the floor.
It is. In rare cases, if the force field is strong enough, the spirit can bypass the medium's nervous system entirely and act directly on the object. But only after that initial field is built, you still need the bridge first.
And he uses some very interesting terminology here. He talks about coordinates.
He does. He says the force field has definite space-time coordinates and a dimensional affect.
A dimensional affect. That feels significant.
It is huge. He goes on to say, and this is the quote you really want to highlight, "This is truly a space-time warp, permitting free interchanges."
A space-time warp.
Yeah.
In a living room in Elmira in 1967,
It implies that to lift an object completely off the ground, defying gravity, you aren't just fighting gravity, you are creating a localized distortion in space-time itself. You are changing the rules of physics in that specific cubic meter of air.
that is heavy.
It's incredibly heavy. It suggests that what we call miracles or paranormal activity might actually be miniature wormholes or warp bubbles created by consciousness.
If that's true, then the haunted house isn't full of ghosts, it's full of dimensional leaks.
That is certainly one interpretation of what Seth is proposing. The table isn't just floating, it's existing in a slightly different dimensional context than the rest of the room. That's why it can move freely.
It reminds me of the Alcubierre drive in theoretical physics, moving a spaceship by warping space around it. Seth is saying we do that with tables.
On a microscale, yes. He's saying consciousness can bend the grid of reality.
Unbelievable. Okay, so that's the physics, that's the how. But we promised a ghost story. And this session contains a reference to one of the most bizarre encounters I've ever heard of.
It does. And it fits perfectly with the Halloween vibe, although it actually happened on October 27th, 3 days before this session.
So let's set the scene for this one. This isn't Jane's living room.
No, this is a deserted third floor of a building in downtown Elmira. It's above a studio owned by a friend of theirs, Bill McDonnell.
And Bill had been hearing things, right?
Yes. Bill worked on the second floor. He kept hearing footsteps on the empty floor above him, heavy, distinct footsteps. But every time he went up to check, it was empty, just dust and mysterious unlocked doors.
Classic haunted house stuff. And there's a backstory to the building.
A really tragic one. A foot doctor named Williman had committed suicide on that third floor several years prior, and notably he did it in October.
So Bill, Jane, Rob, and a few strangers decide to go up there in the dark. Bill brings infrared cameras. They are going on a full-blown ghost hunt.
They want to contact the doctor. They want to see if the footsteps are him.
So they're standing in the dark, near the death scene, which is the doorway, apparently. They're trying to table tip. They're calling out to the doctor. And something happens.
But not what they expected at all. They didn't get the doctor.
Who did they get?
They got Seth.
I just love this image. They were expecting a spooky, moaning ghost, and instead, Seth just bursts through Jane.
And he was not happy.
No. He scolded them.
Seth came through in what Rob describes as a strong and echoing Seth voice. And he told them, quite plainly, to mind their own business.
Mind your own business. That is the big message from the great beyond.
Essentially, yeah. Seth told them that the suicide victim, the doctor, did not want to be reached. He wanted to rest.
This is actually really profound, though, isn't it? We always assume that if a ghost is there, it wants attention. We assume they want to tell us how they died or where the treasure is buried.
Exactly. It projects our own ego onto the afterlife. We think we are the main characters. But Seth says no. He explains that the doctor would be here for a while longer, but then he would leave. In the meantime, the group had no business trying to contact him.
It's like breaking into someone's house while they're sleeping and shouting, "Talk to me."
That is exactly what it is. It's a massive violation of privacy. Seth is essentially acting as the bouncer for the afterlife here. He's protecting the deceased from the harassment of the living.
It's a chilling insight, but also genuinely funny. The ghost Seth is the rational adult in the room telling the living humans to stop being pests.
And the physical toll on Jane was immense. Rob notes that when she came out of trance, she nearly fell over in the darkness. She was so deep under because Seth had to intervene so forcefully.
And in this session, session 376, Seth doubles down on it.
He does. He says, "My opinion of it has already been made clear. It would be advantageous to check with me before you enter such endeavors."
He's like, next time you want to go poke a suicide victim, ask me first. And the answer will be no.
It really emphasizes the ethical dimension of this exploration. Just because you can build a molecular bridge, just because you can warp space-time, doesn't mean you have the right to disturb a consciousness that is simply trying to heal or rest.
Right. It's about respect. Even the dead deserve a do not disturb sign.
Precisely. It's a great reminder that just because we have these tools, these psychic mechanics, doesn't mean we should use them indiscriminately.
So we've got the physics, we've got the ethics. Now let's talk about the equipment. Because Seth gives some very practical advice in this session about the actual tables themselves.
This was surprising to me. You'd think a table is a table, wood is wood. But Seth says no.
He says it is true that some tables will move more easily than others, but it's not about weight.
No, it's not about physics in the Newtonian sense. He says it has nothing to do with weight or size, but to the psychic connections that have built up about the object.
Psychic connections. So a table can be haunted or charged.
Charged is probably the better word. He points out a specific small table in their kitchen. He says it's particularly good because it was built by its owner, whose own abilities are definite, though untrained.
So because someone made it with their own hands, and that person had some psychic ability, the table retains that energy.
It seems so. The intent, the focus, the energy put into the construction of the object makes it a better conductor for this molecular bridge we talked about earlier.
That makes me look at mass-produced furniture differently. Probably not a lot of psychic charge in a particle board table made by a robot.
Seth would likely agree with you. A handmade heirloom might be much more conductive to these forces than a mass-produced item. It holds the resonance of the maker.
It's almost like an antenna. If the antenna is built with better materials, in this case, psychic materials, it picks up the signal better.
That's a great way to put it.
He also mentions the weather, which feels very, practical. Like a farmer talking about crops.
It is. He says the stability of the force field depends on atmospheric circumstances.
So bad weather equals bad reception.
Essentially, if the atmosphere is unstable like during a storm, the force field is unstable. And if the field is unstable, the messages get garbled. He says it is difficult to receive a clear message, for example, when the field itself is not stable.
So if you're trying to contact the other side, wait for a clear night.
Or at least understand that a storm might create static on the line. It grounds the phenomenon in the physical world. It's not just magic happening in a void. It interacts with the air pressure, the humidity, the electrical charge of the atmosphere.
He even gives advice on seating arrangements. This part felt like a dinner party planner.
It's for Jane's ESP class. He's trying to maximize the energy output. He suggests specific combinations of people.
He lets them out right. He says, Venice, Paul, and Cheryl.
Yeah.
Or Ruth, Joan, and Paul.
He's mixing and matching personalities like ingredients in a chemical reaction. He says Rupert for this class should keep one definite place at the table for his own.
Rupert is his name for Jane.
Yes. Seth refers to Jane as Rupert. He's acting as a conductor, an orchestra conductor. He knows that certain people amplify each other, and others might dampen the energy.
It's fascinating that he cares about where they sit. It implies the proximity really matters.
It implies that our energy fields interact in very specific ways depending on physical distance and orientation.
The goal isn't just to move the table, though, is it?
No. Seth says the goal is to get the feel of using energy and of opening up as a channel. The table moving is just the feedback mechanism. It's the proof that you're doing it right.
It's training wheels for consciousness.
Exactly. The point isn't to have a dancing table. The point is to recognize that you are the one making it dance, to recognize your own power.
This whole session really paints a different picture of the paranormal than what we see in movies. It's so technical. It's about energy, focus, molecular bridges, and space-time coordinates.
It demystifies it. It takes it out of the realm of spooky magic and puts it into the realm of physics we just don't understand yet.
And it empowers the individual. Remember that first point. It's not about the ghost doing everything. It's about us, our focus, our energy.
That's the key takeaway. You are far more important than a stenographer. We are participants in the creation of our reality and apparently in the movement of our furniture.
So to wrap this up, let's recount what we've uncovered in this deep dive. Number one, table tipping isn't magic.
It is a molecular bridge created by the nervous system and intense focus. We've learned that we can create force fields that warp space-time.
Number two, if you go ghost hunting, you might get told to shut up and go away.
Because sometimes the dead just want a nap, and we need to respect that.
And number three, a handmade table is better than a generic one.
And always check the weather report before your seance.
Seriously, though, this material is dense and fascinating. If you want to dive deeper into this philosophy, and we have only scratched the surface of session 376, you really need to go to the source.
Absolutely. You can find the Seth Material books and more information at the New Awareness Network website. That is sethcenter.com/the early sessions.
We highly encourage you to check that out. It's a rabbit hole worth going down. Read the books, see the sessions in context.
And remember, this is all for educational purposes. We just want you to think.
I want to leave you with a final thought. Seth talks about unfreezing molecules. He talks about how our focused energy can turn a solid table into something fluid, something that merges with us.
It challenges the solidity of the entire world around us.
Exactly. If your mind can unfreeze a table, what else in your life feels solid, immobile, and stuck? What relationship, what career path, what personal limitation feels like it's carved in stone?
And is it actually stone?
Or is it just waiting for your active focus to melt it? What else is fluid and waiting for your command?
That is a powerful question to end on.
Something to mull over in the dark tonight. But hey, don't go waking up any sleeping ghosts.
Let them rest.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next deep dive.